Welcome to the Jessica Broadway Show, where life is now in session because there's a lot to talk about. On today's episode, I am joined by Rory Paquette. He is one of my becoming friends and coach and mentors in this beautiful podcasting social media space. And I'm super honored to have him on the show today. A little bit for you guys, because you don't get to know him like I do, but he is a Christian husband, father, podcaster, speaker, author, coach, man of many talents, founder of Steel Core Media Groups, and the creator of Wake Up the Mic coaching platform. And today I'm hopeful that we will get to know the man behind the mic. I'm very excited for this. And I'm excited to introduce him to all of you so that you can see the impact that he's making and all of the amazing things that he's doing in the world. So welcome, Rory. Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. How are you doing?
I'm doing better than I deserve, but I really appreciate being here. And I love what you're doing. So I can't wait. I don't know what you have in store for me, but let's rock and roll. Nothing is off limits. So let's do it.
Well, buckle up because I'm going to come at you with an off script question right out of the bag. I want to know why you say I'm better than I deserve. Do you not feel like you deserve the best of everything?
Good one. I like that. That's a great question. I got that from Dave Ramsey in full disclosure. When I first heard him say that I'm better than I deserve, it just rang with me. And I went,
Mm.
that is just exactly how I feel. And the reason that I feel that, to be honest, it's not because I don't think I have value. Maybe that's how it started. But right now, it's a reminder to me that to be humble, and not because I think I'm great, but because it's not coming from me.
Mm.
I had a really long walk to get to where I am with my faith. And so that's a big thing for me, is that every time somebody asks me, how you doing? I want to make sure that I'm reaffirming that anything that I accomplish is coming from God. That's just my own little reminder to say that. And it means that to me every time I say it. So I know that I have value. I feel good about myself, but it's not me. I'm not doing it. It's from him.
Mm.
There you go.
I love that answer. And I think that is
Nice.
something that us as faith believers, there's a balance and a duality to it's not me, but him through me. And explaining that to the world sometimes can come across as like we don't think we have a lot of value. But what we're
Right.
really doing is just acknowledging that without the Lord in my life and the author and creator and co-creator, co-laborer, it's me on my own, man, it's not happening. So I love that you
Right.
drew that distinction, and thanks for explaining and expounding on that for the audience. I appreciate it.
Great question. No one's ever asked me that question before. That was great. Love
Yes,
it.
we
That's
did
right.
it.
Right out of the gate. Right out of the gate, you got a hash
That's a
mark.
wrap,
Way to go.
folks. As we've gotten to know each other, what I've been captivated about is your story. I'm a storyteller. Had my own experience of being sitting on the couch and hearing that little voice inside that said it's time to tell the story. It's kind of been a mission of mine to help people tell their big, beautiful and story um,
Yeah.
through life. And so I wondered if you could kind of set us down a path of where you began and what your story is. We're neither either or, we're a beautiful and. We're not sinners or saints, we're sinners and saints. And there's good and bad to every success story. And I know that you have quite a success timeline of things that you've experienced. And if people saw that, they might think, wow, like, well, that's good for him. He's a this, or they would make excuses for your success and they would exclude themselves from being able to partake in that. But I want you to tell us about the and. Where did that start? You're a host of 7 hit international podcasts, including Power of Man, which is in the top 5%, right?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It
The
is.
Podcaster Nation, which is top 10, has been
Yeah.
top 3%. Like those are pretty staggering numbers, and people that are looking at that and saying, dang, and not really that bit long that you've been doing this. I mean, you've been doing it for a long time, but in the grand scheme of things, you spent more of your life doing other things, building other things. to have this success, I think that people are that's quite I'm awestruck at it, honestly, that you've been able to do that. But every time I see that success, I think there's a story there. So can you just walk us down the journey and tell us the story of how you became, how did Power of Man start? How did you get into this space where, what's the man's story behind the mic?
Wow. How much time you got? You know,
I'm here all day, man. Let's go.
that's it. I'm here all day. I'm here all week. Here we go. I love the question, and so thank you for that. And yeah, that does happen. People go, "Oh, well, he's got a big podcast. Well, that's great. Must be nice for him." Nobody ever sees the work behind the curtain, and that's with everything. That's not just me. That's any podcaster. That's most people who are in business. That's like every influencer ever who has huge views. I mean, they all started off posting for 3 likes and hoping that somebody might notice it. So we all start that way. Mine. I do have a little bit of a story, I guess. I grew up kind of rough. We don't need to necessarily go all the way back to the 3-year-old thing, but I started my life, from a position of being punished and having to just sort of sacrifice. And so that's kind of how I began everything. Dad who liked to drink more than he liked to be a dad. And then when he drank, liked to beat everybody up. I realized early on that I could take it and I'd still be okay the next day. I'd be in pain, but I'd still be here. And so, whenever it would turn on my mom, I'd be the guy who like made sure I made him mad. So he came at me instead of her, you know.
Mm.
Um, you don't really realize at the time either that that's what's going on because you haven't seen the TV and you haven't read the books and you don't know that this is wrong. All you know is this is life. And they tell you, don't say anything outside of the house. So it's not like you're talking about it with your buddies when you're out playing Star Wars during the day. You're just trying to get through the day because that's your good time. You don't even want to think about the bad time because you're enjoying the good time. But I learned lessons like that, how to just not worry about myself. I learned that my happiness or my health or, my level of pain didn't matter as long as I could take care of the people around me. That's a horrible thing to have to learn at that age, but it has served me so well over the
Mm.
years. The other thing that happened at that time was that, we were Catholic. And so we were the family that showed up on Sunday in the Sunday best with my dad sitting there in the pew, right? Taking communion and, reading the Bible and, singing the song and then going home and getting drunk and beating the living daylights out of me, and I was like, this is God. This is what this is about.
Mm.
So I grew up very angry at God. And
Mm.
so, I mean, that's kind of the beginning of the story, was in that stuff. I determined early on I was going to make it without anybody. That was just me, right? And when you're raised on movies, because you don't really have any kind of father figure, the Rockies and the Rambos and the Godfather and what I mean, all these
Mhm.
movies that pertain to me. I mean, Italian everywhere. I was bringing in because that's who we were, and I'm like, you never give up. You take care of your family no matter what. All these types of things. You put that into play, and you become a pretty good dad. You become a pretty good husband because you're there for everyone. You're not there for you. That's a little rough later when things happen, but I did. I worked my way up. I found my way into real estate. I built a big real estate company. We had 5 offices in 2 states. Um, Honestly, I had made it by all
Mm.
standards.
Mm.
I remember even one point we were on vacation and my son looked at me. We were in this big, nice, fancy restaurant. He looks at me and he goes, Dad, are we rich? you know? And I was like, I looked at my wife. I was like, how do I answer that question? I was like, actually, son, yeah, we are, and he was like, man, that's cool. But by all standards we were. Well, I think that probably was the tipping point
Mm.
of pride. 2008 hits, everything crashes. Real estate's gone. We built everything independently, so we didn't have all this cushy stuff to fall back on, and it just kind of like got worse and worse and worse. And we held on as long as we could through all that. 4.5 years actually after the crash, and put everything we had into it trying to make it, and finally lost it all. And I mean, we lost it all. Like, sold everything we owned, had to sell kids' toys, had to sell my kids' basketball hoop. It was like just to put food on the table. We tried to keep them unaffected as much as possible. We couldn't afford to get them into football camp in a very, political school district, which would have meant they are not playing football probably. So we sold our patio furniture, to pay for football camp. You do that stuff. But we got through enough. We kept bouncing that ball on our toes. I was even to the point where if I couldn't come up with the money, I'd go give blood. And you give blood to get paid to go buy groceries to put on the table at night. You do what you got to do. And those were the days before everything was connected, right, with computers. So I'd go over here with my right arm and go over here with my left arm. That's what you got to do. But even that runs out. And we finally hit a point where it was the lowest I had ever been up until then. And I'm like, nothing I do works. I can't do this anymore. How am I going to get something done? I was feeling generally sorry for myself, really bad. Probably in some kind of depression, I don't like to get into that when it comes to me. And I just decided that I didn't need to be here anymore. And so decided when I was going to do it, decided one night this was it, walked down the hall to say goodbye to my boys and went back to the kitchen to take care of it and just be done. And I was like completely emotionless about it. Like it was just a decision that I had made. And, walked back to the kitchen and I'm getting ready to pull the trigger on the whole thing and was overcome. It's the only way I can really say that. Was totally overcome. Started shaking, started sweating, no idea what happened to me, and fell to the floor, not knowing what was happening. I was like, am I having a heart attack? And in my sarcastic Italian brain, I'm like, well, that would save me the trouble, right? And I hit the ground. I was out. And I woke up a while later, and everything had just changed. I woke up, I sat there for a minute, and I was like, what did you almost just do? And I had kind of a clarity that I'd never had before. And I got up. I walked down the hall. I was like just looking at my boys again, like, this isn't a dream. I'm still real. This is all here, right? And when I went in and I opened the door and I looked at them, I was, again, overcome just emotionally this time, not physically, with what in the world were you thinking? How could you ever have considered that? And I said, you got to solve this. You don't have the option of not solving it, because all you're going to do is leave them in a spot where it's not solved. This is your job. And I just kept hearing, you're the dad. You're the dad, So I heard that over and over in my head. And you're getting me. You're getting me. I grabbed a legal pad and grabbed a pen, and I just sat on the floor in my living room, and I just started writing out every single obstacle that was in my way. Every single thing I didn't think I could handle. Every bill, every issue, every problem, every health problem, attitude problem, whatever it was. The bills took up a lot, but we got past that, right? And I just put them all out. Like every sheet of paper was an issue. And I just set them all out. And my entire living room was covered in legal pad paper. And I stood up and I looked at it and was like, okay. And I actually felt in my heart, this is all it is. Because it just feels like it's everything. But when you're looking at like 60 sheets of paper, you're like, that's it. And I went and I was like, okay, where are we going to start? I looked around and I picked one. And I said, how do we fix this? And I just started writing out a plan for how to fix it. And then I said, all right, we got a plan. Put that in this pile, right over here. And I just started doing that with each one. And there were some that I solved that night, and some that, got solved later in the week and things like that. But I also decided that night that I decided that night that if I was going to go out, I was going to go out fighting as hard as I could. So Um, back then we had a newspaper. A lot of you guys probably don't remember what a newspaper is, but they had want ads in them, stuff like that. And I had a newspaper sitting on the floor, and I grabbed the classifieds and just started looking. And I applied for jobs that morning, and I went out and found 3 jobs: a full time, a part time, and another part time. And I was like, okay, I got to keep applying for these. I got to figure out how to put them together. And I managed to get hired at several, and I accepted 3 that all worked together. And it was a full-time gig, and then it was an evening gig that went till real late at night, and then it gave me about an hour to sleep. And then I found a job doing newspapers, which you could start at like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, and get done before the day job. And I went, okay, I'm going to do this. And I was like, you're going to sleep 1 hour a night, dude. And I said, I can do that. I can do that for a while. And I looked at it, and I did the math. And I said, okay, math wise, if I can do this for 6 to 7 months, we're good. And so I said, hey, can you do this for 6 to 7 months for those little boys in there? I was like, I'm going to do it, or I'm going to die trying.
Hmm.
And I did it.
You did.
And everything after that changed.
You broke a generational curse in that moment on the kitchen floor, and you became the father that you never had. The one that said, I refuse to be beat. Thank you for doing that.
I never really heard it that way. I appreciate that.
Yep.
I guess I did. Yeah, it's pretty good.
And if that's the only thing you ever did was break a generational curse of fathers letting their kids down, man, what an honor and a privilege that is. Thanks for not giving up. And I love how you took your problem and you basically created, a list of temporary problems. And I imagine in that moment of being like, man, I was about to make a permanent decision over temporary problems. Right? Like,
looking back now, yeah.
What a lesson for people to hear. Like, do not make permanent decisions based on temporary problems.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
100%.
So powerful. You kind of answered this, and I so appreciate your vulnerability in just letting us hear from you and your heart and what it was like carrying all of that burden. And I imagine your life has consisted of lots of different versions of you along the way, right? And sometimes I think our next version is born out of needing or feeling compelled. And you kind of said it a little bit there of like, I just knew that I was either going to win or I was going to die trying, but I wasn't going to take myself out of the game. Right. And that kind of birthed a new mindset and a new version of you. And oftentimes we do that because we feel compelled or called to create what we wish existed instead of wishing things were better, more, or different about life. We're like, you know what? I'm going to man up and I'm going to create what I wish existed. Here's what I wish existed. And you start solving those problems for yourself. So what is it that you wish you had back then that you found yourself grasping for? And then what did you create to kind of solve that problem for yourself and be of service, taking that mess and turning it into a message of hope for others? Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, that's a perfect question, actually. It's like the perfect segue question. So very well done. I'm impressed. But that's exactly how it happened. And, when I came out of that night and I started working these jobs, I instantly started to feel better just working the jobs because you're doing something to solve the problem. So you're already, starting to work through it. But, when I came to the end of that, and I was realizing what I had kind of been through and accomplished and everything else, it's there's a big feeling when you're doing all that of just being very alone,
Yes.
and it was not that, my wife was amazing through all of this. I tell my story about what I had to go do, and I was the guy who went out and did all the work, and everything else, right? Well, she's the one who's handling the kids at home because I did all this and said, you're not going to go back to work right now. You need to be here for the kids. She said, I need to be here for the kids. We had just lost everything. So both of us going to work and leaving the kids alone to deal with all this stuff made no sense. So we're like, I'd rather work 3 jobs and have you not, and be there with the kids. Big decisions. But she is the one who got them through this. And all the while, she's the one who kept the light burning for our faith, as a family, and kept it burning with them, because I was furious with God, even at that moment, still just beyond myself upset. So when I say I felt alone, it has nothing to do with her, because she just still have no idea why she stayed with me. Most women would have been like, this guy is a complete train wreck. I'm out of here. I'm gone. And she never deviated from that. She, I probably should go back to question 1. She's one of the biggest reasons why I'm better than I deserve, because I don't deserve her. I don't deserve her at all. But I'm blessed to, have that partner in my life. But, for men who are facing all this stuff, our job and our pride, they're linked. Our self-worth and our job and our pride are they're synonymous. Providing is a huge part. Trying to lead, your family, trying to protect your family and keep them safe. I mean, anything. I'm trying to keep a roof over the head. And, we were 8 hours away from not having a place to live. It was so close. So in that, I didn't have a dad. I didn't have any male figures in my life. I didn't have any friends. The friends I thought I had showed their true colors when everything kind of exploded. When you go through a time like that, you realize how many people either don't honestly care or are glad it's happening to you because they think you deserve it, So there's a lot of that, we're unpacking a lot right now, but there's a ton of that. But what I decided was, if there's any way that I could be there for somebody, I was going to do that. And I wasn't sure how to do that. I had done public speaking. I had, done a lot of writing. And so I actually thought at first I was going to write a book about it. And I started writing stuff down. And I was listening to podcasts. And I listened to this one particular podcast. And this guy was talking about starting your own men's movement. And I'm going, wait a minute. I can talk. I mean, I've been told a million times, you've got a good voice, you should be on the radio, blah, blah, blah. So you're like, well, I can definitely talk. Maybe I should try that. So, I grab my phone and I record something real quick on my phone. I listen back and I'm like, yeah, I could probably do this. Spent, I don't know, like $35 or something on like the cheapest mic headphone cheesy set from Amazon. Had a really cheap laptop that was left, that I couldn't have sold if I wanted to, but still worked. Used the free Audacity download and said, all right, I'm going to do a podcast and I'm going to try this. And once I bought the stuff, I was like, okay, here I go. And I sat there and did nothing. And one time I'm sitting there and I'm talking to my wife about it and she stops what she's doing and she literally goes, why don't you just go record something and stop talking about it? And I'm like, yeah, that's probably a good idea. So I go down in the basement, right? I mean, everything's dark, and I'm like, let's just try and figure out how to use this mic. Let's do something here. And I did. And I recorded an episode. It was awful, and I couldn't even hear it. So I was like, all right, delete, start over. And then it kind of happened. Episode 1, Power Man, just came out. And I went save, publish. And I started. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to, if I can help one guy to not walk down that hall, and say goodbye to his kids. If I can help one guy not do that, that's all I wanted to do. And I mean, honestly, that's what the podcast is still about. Every time I get on to record something, I'm just thinking about one guy. I'm talking to one guy. I'm thinking about that one guy. And I'm like, if I can help one guy then everything I'm doing is worth it. And now we're helping thousands of guys. And again, that's not me. That's God working through me. And we've helped thousands of guys through that podcast.
I
So
love that
there you go.
you went for the one, right? And that is such a example of how God comes after us. It's like the nine leaves the 99 for the one. It's always about the one. And if you get too caught up in, I'm going to change the world, right?
Yeah.
It starts with one and the power of one. And then that amplifies and that matters. And just like you making that decision, to not follow through and to change and break that, your one decision impacted generations, you know. And if you touch one man's life, think about his kids that will go on to have their father, that have their, I mean, like, it just touching one changes generational patterns. It's the ripple effect. And I love that that's your commitment every time you step up to the mic. It's literally for the one. And that's such
Yeah.
a rare thing to experience. So I appreciate you doing that. And I'm really glad that you brought in and spoke to the role that your wife played in all of this, because sometimes the unsung heroes, it's like someone's listening, and I particularly hear this a lot in the mom space. Well, it's easy for him because, he's the man and he could go do those things. But, it's harder for women because we also have the home front that we're taking care of. And I think that you also worked in there, and, maybe you know this, maybe you don't. But for our listeners, I'm really big on our by design nature. And like, we get magic happens when we lean into our by design instead of competing, comparing,
Hmm.
and criticizing one another. And what I heard you saying there was, that a man's worth is tied to his ability to provide, protect, and to lead his family, you know. And I would offer in turn that a woman's by design role is to influence, help, and nurture. And that's what she's the best at. And I love how you made space for her to lean into her by design, and then she made space for you. She released that. She trusted you, and she said, all right, go provide, protect, and lead our family,
Yeah.
and her in the background influencing you to go in the basement and say, I'm going to nurture you to go record something, and I'm going to help you take action here. Like, that's just such a beautiful acknowledgement to how God can move when you stop competing with each other, when you stop criticizing one another, and you start saying, how can I collaborate with you? What am I good at? What are you good at? Um, Thank you for talking about the role that your wife played in your faith and your journey, and for acknowledging the impact that it had on her, and highlighting that for couples. I think that's really good for people to hear, is that collaborative approach to it. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Anything you want to say about that?
Um, I wasn't always good at that, to be honest,
Mm.
and you do some podcasts or you have some success, and you're used to, like, oh, I'm doing it on my own. I'm out here, and it's the story, right? No help, right? And my wife and I have grown just incredibly over the years, from raising three kids, and, we're empty nesters, and we're on our second act now, and everything else. So, we've really grown a lot. But one of the things I've realized, and I realized real hard a couple of years ago, was that even though I thought I was appreciating her, I wasn't fully appreciating her.
Mm.
And I think you really have to get slapped in the face sometimes to fully understand. Like, you get it on a surface level, and you want to say the right things and all that, but you have to really get it. And when you get it, then it's not an effort to remember to recognize what my wife did, because I'm very, very cognizant of it. I'm very aware. And but sometimes you have to get knocked down to remember that stuff, and she deserves a whole lot more than that. You know.
And what did it look like? It's kind of, again, off the cuff, just hearing what you're saying. What did it look like to recognize that? Like, what was that before and after? What you thought you were doing, and then what you're doing now. Like, how did that change, and what was the result of that shift?
Um, I guess those shifts either happen sort of gradually and then they eventually happen and you look back, or it's at a big event, right?
Hmm.
I've almost died twice in my life. Both were technically my fault, but only one was on purpose. You know, this the other one was 2 years ago, and I
Mm.
was walking around with really bad pneumonia. Had no idea that I had this horrible pneumonia. I just thought I kept getting sick. Didn't know why. And you chalk it up to being older or out of shape or whatever it is. And then one day it just got worse, and the breathing's getting less and less and less, and I felt like we were timing her contractions, like they were getting closer and closer. And I'm like, babe, this is at this rate, I'm not going to be breathing in the next like 15 minutes. Uh, we need to go to the hospital because it was just shutting down, and I couldn't, like couldn't take a breath, and that's really frightening. And so she throws me in the truck. She breaks every law in the world, getting me to the hospital.
Mm.
No ambulance could have got me there that fast. I'll tell you that right now. And as I'm walking into the emergency room, I black out because I can't take a breath and hit the ground. I wake up and there's like 5 nurses and a doctor and everybody around me, and apparently I'm breathing again, but my lung just shut down. And after a whole bunch of tests, and they tried a bunch of different things, I was in the hospital for 3 weeks. And they finally said, "Well, we can't fix this any other way. Your lungs completely shut down. It's
Mm.
completely full, and there's this gel on the outside of it that has frozen around it. We can't do anything." And the one on the other side is about a third of the way gone because of that. So we really need to, go in. And it's like, wait a minute, you're going in? And they're like, yeah. So they had to do a big surgery. I'll try and make this a shorter story, but they, had to cut into me. And so I have like on the front, I'll show you, it's like this, big. It's like a
Oh
shark bite
man.
where they went through the bone and the muscle and the nerve and everything. And they literally just cleaned out everything from my lungs. Um, Come to find out afterwards, I had about a 20% chance of even, waking up.
Wow.
But I did. And then it's a huge recovery. And, when you're laying in a hospital and you've just been through the hardest physical thing in your whole life, and again, you shouldn't even be here. And your wife is there, sleeping there, staying there, never leaving your side, getting you the drink, moving stuff around. I mean, literally every second that you need something, she's there. Um, it's 3 o'clock in the morning and we're both awake, right? Because she's worried about me and I can't sleep, and there's nothing on that 8th channel up there to watch anymore.
Mm.
So you're like, all right, and you just start having talks like you never had before, um, because there's nothing else going on that's more important than you and your wife sitting there talking.
Nothing.
And I found her, I found God, I found my path.
Mm.
In that recovery from that, everything just became like so clear, and it changed my entire life when that happened. I came out of the hospital going,
Mm.
no more. I mean, everything's different. And that was really, honestly, when I realized how much she had done for me, I mean, and was doing for me, of course. But even past the hospital, it wasn't just about, hey, let me help you move and get up and, all this stuff. It, it had been going on for years. And you kind of just realize these things when you have time to get quiet. And I had never given myself time to get quiet because I was fighting something from, the moment I was born. I've been fighting something. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't fighting anything anymore. I was just able to be with my wife. And I needed that badly. Had no idea how bad I needed it, but it changed my whole life. And that was really the moment where I realized exactly how much she had always been there
Mm.
through everything, through everything. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. She's backed every idea I've ever had, even the really stupid ones, you know. She's encouraged me through, I mean, every goofy thing I've thought I was going to do. I mean, she's always been there. And she's like, hey, if you think it'll work, let's do it. What's the worst that happens? It doesn't work. And so again, much better than I deserve. I don't deserve her. She could
Mm.
walk out into traffic and like get, hit by a car with driven by somebody better than me, and just at random. And for some reason, she is still with me after all these years. I have no idea why. She could trade up tomorrow, but she keeps driving the same old jalopy. I have no idea why.
Because she chose you, not for the man that you are, but the one she sees in you every single day that she wakes up.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it sounds like she is an amazing woman at calling to the man that you are becoming and calling that man out and encouraging you and influencing you and helping you and nurturing you. And I just think that's a really beautiful story. So thank you for making space for that on this
yes.
show. I know this is to hear about you, but as the saying goes, behind every great man is a woman pulling the strings, right?
And holding him up, and
And hold
cleaning
him
up
up
after
and
him
doing the
and
things,
patting him on the head, going, "It'll be all right." I mean, oh yeah,
Mm.
she's been there every second. So yeah, yeah. Good question
Yeah.
though. I
I
appreciate you asking about
really, I love it because I think this is so valuable to people who are, they want to, I hear it often in the spaces that I'm in, is that there's always an exception to the rule. Well, that's good for you, but you just don't have my life, or right? It's
it. Right.
there. You probably hear it as a coach as well. I hear it often, and the thing that's most important for people to hear is that, yeah, but your exception, the day you decide to not let that be the thing that holds you back anymore, is exactly the thing that's going to remove the hurdle for someone else too. You could have let all those things be your excuse as to why you couldn't or didn't, but you didn't. And now, because of that, you have been able to create a platform that gives you not only credibility of lived experience, but a safe place for people to come and say, all right, Rory, here's my big, fat, ugly exception to why I'm not successful or can't do this or can't do that. And you're like, all right, I'll see you that excuse and then raise you one more, right? Like, not that it's a competition, but you
Yeah.
have been there. You've done the work. And I heard a saying one time that said, don't play with people who've experienced a near death experience. They see the world differently and they are unstoppable.
That feels
Agree or
correct.
disagree?
Agree. Yeah. I
you
honestly feel
know,
bulletproof right now. Like there's nothing anybody can do to hurt me. Honestly. And that's when they talk about putting on the armor of God. That's what it feels like for me right now. I feel like
mm-hmm.
I wake up every day and I already have that on, and it's amazing to feel that way.
But it's a
But I do.
choice, right? It's a
Yeah,
choice.
100% a choice. You got it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, it's a
Yeah.
choice I make every morning. Is to make sure it's on. you know, Yep, still good. All right, let's go. Let's go out into the fray.
Mm-hmm.
But and I did the why me. I did the poor me. Why is this happening to me? God must hate me, right? All these things. It doesn't end well. It doesn't work, and it's not true. It's a lie, and so that gets old
You
after a
know
while.
what? I've paid full price for a few lies in my day too. And
I bet, yeah.
the day you decide that, yeah, I may have paid full price for this, but I'm willing to sell it for a penny, right? Just to get rid
Hmm.
of it.
Right.
And sometimes we commit to things because it costs us a lot and we keep holding on to stuff because of what it
Hmm.
cost us. And man, that's not worth it. It's better to get rid of it. Even if it costs you even more to get rid of it, it's better to be rid of it and start rebuilding on a strong foundation and truth, than to keep living in a lie, right?
Totally agree. Totally agree.
So I'm big on, working with people to live complete and not allow the pain of the past to rob them of the joy of the present. And I think too often our past pain shows up and hijacks our present moment and just steals everything from it. And so it requires like a big level of work to letting go and releasing and healing and grieving. And that's something we never escape. Maybe we don't have the words for it, but it's absolutely what we're doing every time we decide to release the past and choose the present. And so, if you would, as we kind of wrap up our time together, I would like to talk about this element of learning to grieve prior versions of us, because the brain processes over 100,000 thoughts per day, roughly about 70% of them are predicted to be negative. So even if you said 500 affirmations a day, it wouldn't even make a dent in the 70,000 negative subconscious thoughts you're having per day, right? So it's not about like just thinking better and stacking good things in or trying to do new behaviors or new habits. There is a process that's required of clearing space for the next version of us to exist and to reclaim that territory that was taken from us, to reclaim our lives. But you have to let go. So can you tell me, I know it's probably putting you on the spot here a little bit, but can you tell me about what version of you did you have to grieve and release and forgive in order to fully step into the power of man, so to speak, to embrace your calling of coaching and helping other people make their mess a message, and for them to be able to do that in your own unique way that you coach people? What did you have to grieve and release in order to be that?
Great question. Wow. Um, yeah. There was a version of me that existed early on that, even though I realized kind of what I needed to do with my life, it didn't change what I craved and what I wanted and what hurt, right? And so, you talk about that inner child, which bothers me just as a man. I hate using that phrase, but I mean, I know that there's some truth to the idea and the concept, you know. But my inner child was uh, that being, that huge part of me that needed um, to be recognized. It was that part
Mm,
that needed the validation, needed the affirmation from outside, from someone else. I needed, everybody. Wanted everybody to like me. If somebody didn't like me, it really bothered me. I was like, why don't they like me? What did I do to them? Because I didn't get it from the people that I should have got it from. In the first place.
mm,
And so you grow up with that empty spot where you're supposed to get that. Um,
yes.
but I had to grieve that. I had to let that go. I had to let that part die because
Mm,
as long as I was looking for that and needing that so badly, I couldn't give everything I actually had to the people that now need it.
yes.
I have 3 kids who need that from me. And if I am worried about getting it because I didn't get it from my dad, then I can't give it to them fully.
Amen.
And I had to let go of that.
Yeah.
The most important thing in my life was those 3. My wife and I both went into it like, it's not even about us; it's about those 3. And we suffered plenty. Again, like to steal your phrase, we paid full price for that.
Hmm.
We, thank goodness, have been able to focus on each other, recently and in the last couple of years, since my kids have all been grown and gone. But until then, we really were just united. Like nothing matters but these 3.
Mm,
And to do that, I had to let go of that. I had to just say, I don't care what somebody thinks of me, and I had to really mean it. Because you can say it, but you don't really mean it. With the work that I've done, I've now to date received 6 different actual death threats, and
wow.
the first couple like really shook me to my core, you know. But you play it off like, eh, you know what? Yeah, I'm fine, right? Now I really do feel that way. I got the last one, and I was like, okay,
Next.
good
Right.
luck, right? And if that's the way I'm going to go, that's the way I'm going to go. I'm not even going to worry about this. Because if this is what God has in mind, that's what He has in mind. And I'm not going to worry about it. But I really do feel that way now, and the difference in how I felt behind the reaction to those things is night and day. I don't. I was more upset that someone hated me that much. Now I'm like, man, if you hate
True.
me this much, you're the one with the problem, brother. And wow, you really really need help. Um, I can't worry about it anymore. I just can't. And so I honestly, I'm online a ton. I teach online stuff. I teach podcasting. I teach social media. And, so when I get the haters coming, um, when I first started Wake Up the Lions, which is a Christian based podcast, all I did was put the ad out for it. I didn't even start the podcast yet. I put the ad out. and it was a reel saying coming, tomorrow or soon or whatever it was. I got 270 something comments, and like three-quarters of them were threats and you better not, and this is awful, and calling me names. I'm like, what? I didn't even launch yet.
Wow.
And it was like, okay, there's just that much hate in the world. And so, I just kind of developed in order to keep that part of me gone that I've already grieved. I just developed bless, block, delete.
I love it.
That's what you do. Bless, block, delete, and move on. And so that's to answer your question. And again, in too long of a way, I'm being a terrible guest for you, but they,
Don't you know
I'm not letting you talk.
we do short stories long here, not long stories short. So it's great.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate the grace, but that's it.
Yeah.
Having to grieve that part, that me, is the only way I can move forward.
It's important. It's important to acknowledge who you were, forgive, as you would say, block, bless, delete, right?
Yep.
You
Bless,
you
block,
have
delete.
you can't live. I heard a saying one time that said, stop shooting all over yourself. It's really messy and it stinks.
Yeah.
And if you live trapped in the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, man, it's just not a fun game to play. And when you finally release that and you said, so I didn't, what's next? You really step into owning your calling and saying, hey, I know. I think there's a defining moment for everybody where you say, I can't do that. And where the Lord whispers back to you, you're right. You can't, but we can. Will you still say yes? And that's kind of what I see that you've embodied and empowered others to do, is to realize, like, it's not me, it is the Lord working through me. I'm but a vessel, and I just answered yes, Lord, and this is what we're doing together. And I really want to applaud you for the message of hope that you bring and the stand that you're willing to take. And as they say, if God is for you, who can be against you? And you're living proof of that.
Thanks for
Yeah,
that. I appreciate it. Okay.
you bet. I want to give everybody, if you haven't already gotten the vibe here, that this is somebody that you need to be following, hooking up with, getting connected with, listening to. If you need a mentor in your life to speak and remind you of the truth that you've forgotten along the way, Rory is your man. So make sure that you're following him on social media at Rory Paquette on Instagram and Facebook, and be looking for what he has coming next. We are really privileged to have you on Big Ideas as our mentor, and then me also to have you as my mentor as I grow this channel. And I hope to have you back as a guest in the future. There's so many things that I was like, ding, ding, that I would love to just get your POV on, because you do live it. You live the walk and talk. What's it? Walk the talk the walk, and walk the talk. I don't know. Everybody knows I jumble those things
We
up.
get it. That's
Yep.
all right. Yeah.
But I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being on the show. Any last thoughts before we wrap up today?
Honestly, the pleasure was mine. I really appreciate the platform to kind of just spread that story, and that word of hope. And I love what you're doing here. So I'll come back anytime. You just name it, and I'll be here. Love it.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thanks.
much. Well, until next time, everyone, love your people, live your purpose, and don't stop creating possibilities, because life is now in session.